Risk of Rain 2, on the surface, seems like a straightforward roguelike shooter, but beneath its deceptively simple exterior lies a universe of unanswered questions. The lore of Risk of Rain is vast and scattered, with most of it having already happened long ago, and the remnants of these events being the only things left to tell the stories. This video dives into the mysteries of Risk of Rain 2, exploring the unanswered questions that linger in the shadows of its world. In the descriptions of some items and stages, there are references to a mysterious character, only ever referred to as her. While reading descriptions of some of the more secret entries of the lore, multiple references to this character can be found, and they appear to have some relation to Mithrix and Providence, and seem to be held in high regard, perhaps even reverence. A majority of the references are located in the lore of specific items and stages tied to Mithrix and his creations, and through reading these we can begin to get a vague idea of who this mysterious her actually is. In the logbook entry for the stage Prime Meridian, Mithrix is talking to his brother, Providence, about building 3 massive statues, one for each of the brothers and one for her. He refers to her as having left the planet at some point before the events of the entry, and is building these monoliths as both a gift to her, but also a tool to help boost the attributes of each of them, as is revealed to us in this specific line of the stage's logbook. I build for us not only as a sign of our friendship, but tools for making our weight easier. Yes, 3 great statues built in our image to house our respective strengths. The first to catalog my great designs, yours to hold and magnify your talentless soul, the last for her, so that she... So, clearly, this person was important enough that Mithrix was willing to go to great lengths to honor her and her relationship with the brothers. It appears she earned this reputation through some enlightening interactions she had with the brothers before leaving the planet, though we only have a vague idea of what this could have possibly been. The only other reference we have to her is after she has died. We don't know if she's ever returned to the planet, as Mithrix was expecting her before she died, but regardless, the brothers know that she did in fact pass away. In fact, it appears her death was a sacrifice for something, though Mithrix seems to believe her death was wasted on his brother. In the lore entry for the item Brittle Crown, Mithrix states, "She should have died for me. Her gift was wasted on you," while talking to his brother from his throne on the moon. So it seems whoever she was, whatever she did, and whatever happened to her, it was before the imprisonment of Mithrix at the hands of his brother, and perhaps her sacrifice was one of the driving forces of the brothers' growing tension. For a character of seemingly great story importance and significance, we know little to nothing about them or their actions. But whoever she was, whatever she did, and whatever happened to her, perhaps it was the catalyst for what would later become of the brothers. During a regular run of Risk of Rain 2, you may come across these small blue stone statues surrounded by bright blue spines. They are typically tucked away in nooks and crannies, with some even being out of bounds of the regular playable level. These statues, dubbed Newt Altars, can be interacted with for the price of 1 lunar coin. This will allow you to visit a secret level after completing the stage's teleporter event. This hidden realm is the Bazaar Between Time, a place where you can spend your accumulated lunar coins to buy powerful lunar items. But the thing that catches most people's attention is the creature that will suddenly appear upon entry into the bazaar. This entity, simply called the Newt, is perhaps one of the most enigmatic characters we ever come across. We know next to nothing about this amphibian, and they are only ever referred to once in the lore, that being the logbook for the bazaar itself, which you can find hidden down here. There was a sudden flash of white, blue, and green as the pod of time newts, 200 strong, burst through the walls of the occlusion and into the slipstream. They relaxed as they re-entered their natural habitat. The currents of the slipstream were strong, but they were much stronger. With magnetic webs, the newts propelled themselves at amazing speeds. They all swam effortlessly and gracefully. All but one. 50 meters behind the pod, a lone newt struggled to keep up. With a defective left arm, atrophied and bent, he didn't have the same capabilities as his brothers and sisters. The group ignored his struggles as they continued down the stream. Soon, the pod was completely out of sight, and he was all alone in the darkness of the slipstream. Slowly, a smile creeped onto the face of the blind, disfigured newt. Finally, unbeknownst to his brethren, he knew of a secret place nearby, and he didn't want them to find out. He dove deep between two boulders into a long, dark tunnel. He passed through the tunnel, and he surfaced on the other side. Compared to the roaring of the slipstream, this place was seemingly silent. His smile grew wider. A tide pool. The tension in the newt's body began to fade. It had been a very long day, and he could really use the rest. The tide pool was completely removed from the currents of the slipstream and the abuse of his pod. He began to float along the surface. The newt had been here hundreds of times before, but each time he fell deeper and deeper in love. His mind drifted his experiments. It felt like he was near a breakthrough with some of his tinctures. With his mind preoccupied, he didn't notice some changes had taken place since his last visit. He didn't notice that the water levels were a bit higher and a bit warmer. He didn't notice that all the flyfish were gone. He didn't notice the blue glow. He didn't notice the long, pale arms grasping in the depths below. From this entry, we learn that the newt we see in the Lunar Bazaar isn't the only of his kind. In fact, it seems there are hundreds of these entities, though we never see or hear any reference to the rest of them. We can assume that the newt in the bazaar is the deformed newt mentioned in the entry, due to their shared attribute of their left arm being, well, deformed. Upon closer inspection, we can see that the newt's left arm is inscribed with white tattoos and some kind of blue sigil or seal rotating around the wrist. Given the newt's visual theme and location, it's not a reach to assume these long, pale arms that grabbed the newt out of the tide pool was in fact Mithrix. The question is, why? What reason would Mithrix have for kidnapping this newt, and did it happen before or after his imprisonment on the moon? We can infer that the newt has some strong connection to the lunar items due to being the merchant of them, so perhaps he was recruited to be their guardian? A fact that helps back up this theory is that if you attack the newt in the bazaar, he raises his left arm and, in a flash of blue light, teleports you outside the bazaar and bars entry from it with a glass wall that appears. Another interesting thing to note is that if you zoom in with the railgunner, the newt's left hand is his apparent weak point, implying that despite the apparent augmentation of his arm, it is still a hindrance to him. The newt is a strange yet inviting character, with some interesting implications to the greater world of Risk of Rain, and while we may never get more information on him, we can still thank him for his lunar goodies. On the topic of the Lunar Bazaar, if it is a player's first time in the bazaar, they may have noticed a strange crystal placed next to the newt, and upon examination appears to have some person frozen inside it. This is the Artificer, a playable character you can equip after spending 10 lunar coins to free them from the lunar shard. But who are they, and how did they even get here? The only real lore explanation we get on the Artificer herself is from her own logbook description.
With the intense belief that heaven is a place, not a mystical place, the High Court searched deep into space for the Promised Land. Intensely driven by both dogma and science, the High Court holds amazing technological marvels, with nearly all of them hidden deep within their halls. The House Beyond represents the most ambitious of the High Court's followers, spearheading Zone 5 deep space travel. With the advantage of their unique ENV suit, the House Beyond have gone deeper into space than any other house in High Court by an order of magnitude. The ENV suit, worn by the Artificers of the High Court, is an engineering marvel, able to calibrate the conditions of any environment. The technology behind the ENV suit, like all other High Court technology, is still undisclosed.
So, this tells us the Artificer's motives, but nothing really about who they are or how they ended up in the bazaar. One other thing we can look at for a bit more lore is the artifact of Vengeance, as when you enable this artifact, every 10 minutes an Umbra of your player will spawn, and these Umbras all have a unique title, with the Artificers being Herald of the House Beyond. From this, we can safely assume the Artificer is someone of high authority or position in the House Beyond, but the bigger question for me is, how the hell did she even get in this situation? I think we can safely assume they got into the Bazaar the same way the player character can, but why are they imprisoned in the Bazaar? What could she have possibly done to warrant being sealed away? It couldn't have been for attacking the Newt, as when we do it, he simply kicks us out, and that applies even if you attack the Newt as the Artificer. So what then? Okay, so upon hearing this, you may be saying to yourself, but Votive, we know what it is. Have you looked at the item for more than 1 fucking second? And just hear me out, okay? If we look at the logbook for the item, we can read this.
The nut apple is an exotic fruit picked from the curious Zeltham tree native to the coastal gemimines on Titan. Renowned for its sweet yet cleansing flavor and low caloric total, the nut apple is a must-have for health enthusiasts everywhere.
And that seems pretty straightforward, right? Case closed, says right there, cut and dry. But hold on now, because what I'm about to show you will blow your mind. In the logbook description for the stage Helmuth Hatchery, we can find this excerpt.
Strange tools of silver line the walls alongside endless artifacts, freely given, intricately carved, and tenderly loved. His tribute. He pulls an oblong clay jar down, a seal bearing his likeness breaks under his grip with a hiss. Inside the jar, crackling starseed thorns and dried key fruit skins. Their earthly scent fills the smoldering workshop.
And if we go to the stage and look for ourselves at the top of the spire, where the anvil is located, we see this pot toppled over on the floor. And if we look inside, foreign fruits. Now, this discovery raises a question as if to the foreign fruit is actually the nut apple named in the description of it. Because how could the nut apple be native to Titan, but also here in the hatchery at the time whoever was using the forge was building the Morningstar? Is the foreign fruit a nut apple, or is it a key fruit? We know that most of the lore events take place long before the events of Risk of Rain, and that key fruit has been around since the brothers were children. So, did Mithrix somehow take some from Titan and cultivate them? But if that was the case, why do we only find foreign fruits in shipping crates? Previously, I mentioned the stage Helmuth Hatchery, and a certain room on that stage being the anvil/forge room at the very top of the central building. We learn in the logbook entry that this place was used by someone, who I assume to be Providence, to craft a weapon called the Morningstar, and learn more about the creation of this weapon from the logbook entry.
He reaches into the molten obsidian and pierces the bowl with a starseed born from within, a thorn for each fate changed. Many thorns and fates later, he taps silver tool against the stone of the workshop. He places the spiked obsidian ball inside and pats its muzzle twice. The gilded worm is to take the mace to the surface. The obsidian cools in a shaft of putrid moonlight, collecting lunar rage and loneliness. For the handle, he wraps a rod of silver and dried key fruit skins, an eon of freedom, lost to gravity wells long ago.
All of these ingredients seem to be in some reference to the brothers and their shared history, and given its possible creator, it's safe to assume this weapon is extremely powerful. It also appears that this mace was a gift or apology to someone, perhaps even Mithrix, so it seems very important to its creator. So that raises the question, where the hell is it? If someone would go through the meticulous process of forging a weapon, one that is seemingly to atone for something, why would they just abandon it, or at the very least not seal it away somewhere safely? Initially, I thought it could be one of the weapons scattered across the face of the moon, as maybe this weapon was an apology to Mithrix, but upon closer examination of the various weapons, none of them fit the description of the Morningstar. there are no items, abilities, or even enemies that resemble or use the mace, so I'm left to conclude that the weapon is evidently just left lying somewhere, possibly due to the events of Risk of Rain 1 where we kill Providence. And if he is in fact the one who created this mace, perhaps we robbed him of the chance for him to apologize to his brother. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you think I missed something or have any theories, please let me know in the comments below, and if this video does well enough, maybe I'll make a part 2. So don't forget to like and subscribe and help boost this video in the algorithm.